It's a great book. I think it will explain a lot of decisions that you've seen made and will continue to see made. The president went on that the book was part of his presidential DNA. It's what I think. It's part of all policy. It's part of my philosophy. And in fact, we saw that in the State of the Union address, the inaugural address. Let's watch.
We do not accept the existence of permanent tyranny because we do not accept the possibility of permanent slavery.
And if we go to page 278 in the book, we see, just as the institution of slavery has been all but wiped off the face of the earth, so too can government tyranny become a thing of the past. You met with the president. What did he tell you about the thoughts that are in this book?
The president said that he always felt that freedom is not kind of American invention, but that's the gift of God to all the mankind. And he's glad to read the book, which summarizes his views on this issue in such a good way.
Pat Buchanan, you have analyzed this book in the latest issue of the American Conservative. You write, "Only democracy can pave the way to true peace and security." This is the message of Sharansky's Case for Democracy, which the president has embraced and encouraged all to read. But what is often true is not always true. And U.S. foreign policy, which is to protect U.S. vital interests and the peace and freedom of Americans, cannot be rooted in the idealism of an ex-Soviet dissident. Sharansky notwithstanding, democracy is neither a necessary nor sufficient condition of America's peace and security, nor even of Israel's. Explain.
All right. Well, let's take Israel's situation. Mr. Begin signed an agreement to give back the Sinai to Egypt with Anwar Sadat, who was the successor of a military dictator, Nasser. He was not a Democrat. The Israeli government signed an agreement with Hafez al-Assad, a dictator of the worst kind, for a truce on the Golan Heights, which is held. What I am saying is this, Tim. You do not need a democratic government in order to achieve a success. In Mr. Bush's first term, he cut a deal with Gaddafi, state sponsor of terror, whereby Gaddafi would give up his weapons of mass destruction, his support for terror, in return for the United States letting him out of the penalty box of sanctions. Gaddafi remains a state sponsor of terror. He was, but we cut a deal with him, and it was a successful deal on the part of the President of the United States. He is to be commended for it. That is realism in foreign policy. It is not idealism, but it is realism.
The Russian defense minister this morning said that he was tired of being lectured about the United States about democracy. In fact, he suggested a summit between Russian President Putin and American President Bush. And he went on to say, quote, "Democracy is not a potato that you can transplant from one kitchen garden to another."
It's true that you cannot impose democracy. You cannot impose freedom. If people don't want, they will not be free. But you can impose dictatorship. And unfortunately, very often, free world, including the United States of America, are imposing dictatorship on the other people simply by supporting these dictators. And as to lecturing, you don't need to lecture. You simply need to link your policy with these countries with the policy of human rights. Pat Buchanan was standing near President Reagan when President Reagan made his Evil Empire speech. It was the biggest encouragement for us, for dissidents in Soviet prison, but as a result of the defeat of the Soviet Union, not only we are free, America is much more secure. So the security of the United States of America, of people in the United States of America, depends on the level of freedom of people in the other countries. Because democracies are peaceful, because the leaders of democratic countries depend on the will of their people, and dictatorships are always belligerent, because in order dictators will control their own people, they need external enemy.
Well, let me talk about the realism that Mr. Buchanan brought up and read something that he wrote and then give both of you a chance to respond. This is Pat Buchanan. "The president now plans to hector and badger foreign leaders on the progress each is making toward attaining U.S. standards of democracy. This is a formula for bring it on. Collisions with every autocratic regime on earth, including virtually every African and Arab ruler, all the outposts of tyranny named by Secretary of State Rice, most of the nations of Central Asia, China, and Russia. This is a prescription for endless war." Do you agree?
No. First of all, I believe that all the people, when given the opportunity to choose between living in fear or living in freedom, choose to live in freedom. And when I was a dissident, I heard from some of our American friends that Russians don't want to live in freedom. We can give examples how advisors of Truman were saying in 1945 that Japanese people don't want to live in freedom, and so on and so on. The moment of the test, when the people can choose between to continue to live in fear or to live in freedom, if they have an opportunity, they always choose to live in freedom.
Prescription for endless war?
Certainly it is. Look, the United States of America, I dissent strongly from my friend. The United States of America has always been free and always been secure. There have been despotisms from time immemorial. There are 22 Arab states, not one of which is democratic, and the United States has not been threatened by any of them since the Barbary pirates. In my judgment, what happened on 9/11 was a result of interventionism. Interventionism is the cause of terror. It is not a cure for terror. The idea that the President of the United States, as he said in his inaugural, is going to help democratic institutions in every region and every nation on earth is a formula for permanent war, Tim. And look, the President of the United States has no constitutional authority to do this. Where in the Constitution do we get the right to intervene in the internal affairs of countries that do not threaten us and do not attack us? If they don't, their internal politics are their own business. As Quincy Adams says, America does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the champion of freedom everywhere, but the vindicator only of her own.
The President said that on September 11th, quote, freedom came under attack.
The President of the United States was profoundly mistaken. He has misdiagnosed the malady. He has misdiagnosed the reason for the attack, Tim. The United States was not attacked because we are free. Bin Laden was not attacking the Bill of Rights. We were attacked because because the United States military and political presence is massive over there. Bin Laden, in his fatwa, his statement of declaration of war in the United States, said the infidels were standing on the sacred soil of Saudi Arabia. They want us out of the Middle East. They don't care whether we have a separation of church and state.
Do you agree with that? Were we attacked for our ideals, our freedom, or were we attacked because of our Mideast policies?
America was attacked because it is the leader of the free world and the world of terror, where the values are very different, saw it as a danger. But just now we heard that no Arab countries ever threatened the United States of America. I want to say Saudi Arabia. I remember how in '91, after Gulf War, when America saved Saudi Arabia, I was raising the question of the American leaders, why don't you link, like you did with the Soviet Union, with some minimal demand about freedom of migration, the rights of women? And I always was told, what Saudi Arabia is about stability of the West. What really happened, it's a typical example, tribal dictatorship of Saudi Arabia. In order to survive, they need external enemy. And that's why they need to support Wahhabism inside the country and outside the country. As a result, stability of Saudi Arabia means destabilization and terror all over the world.
We brought down the Shah and we got the Ayatollah. You bring down that Saudi monarchy, you destabilize that regime, and Howard Dean, an Arab Howard Dean, is not going to rise out of the wreckage. That country is a nation whose people now admire and respect bin Laden, not George Bush. We cannot make the enemy the best of the good. Tim, look, we have had occasions. The last great crusade for democracy was Woodrow Wilson going across the sea with an army to make the world safe for democracy. We brought down all the monarchs, and we got instead Lenin and Stalin and Mussolini and Hitler.